There it is, the best Fallout game. Or at least of the 3D modern ones, I still haven't gotten around to playing the first two yet. But anyway, why do I and many others consider this the best in the series? Well, let's start this off with the plot of the game. Now, for pretext, this being a Fallout game means that it takes place in the post-apocalypse. And in this post-apocalyptic world, there are many different factions struggling in order to take over. With this particular game being set in the western part of the United States in Nevada. And the three major factions that are struggling for influence this time around are the New California Republic, or NCR for short, which is a faction that wants to bring back the old ways of America, like democracy and presidents and all that. Caesar's Legion, or Kaiser as they pronounce it, which is exactly what it sounds like, which is a dictatorship that has a whole bunch of legionary warrior types, except now instead of wearing real armor, they're just wearing football gear. And then you have the mysterious Mr. House, who lives in New Vegas, but also keeps it like running, power and water and everything. And nobody knows how he was able to keep like the city together, or never has met him in person. And all the big players here are trying to take over two things. The first of which being the big prize of the Mojave, the Hoover Dam, which after all the nukes have gone off is still like giving power and still working. And then you have the secondary target, which is New Vegas itself, for it being like one of the last true pieces of civilization still existing. And well, the stage is set for one big bloody war to happen, with the Caesar's Legion ready to slaughter anything in their way in order to take the dam, and the NCR using its massive elite army trying to hold on to the dam. And then you have Mr. House right in the middle, who wants to take the dam but also protect Vegas using his security robots. But amidst all of this, a man named Benny wants to try and one-up everyone by stealing a powerful piece of technology known as the Platinum Chip. And now this mysterious chip that was meant to go to Mr. House is in Benny's hands. But in an act of desperation to cover up his tracks, he decides to kill the courier who is holding onto it. So he shoots him in the head and leaves him to die in a shallow grave. But miraculously, you survive. And after being nursed back to health, it is now up to you to start your quest. And well, quite frankly, your quest can be whatever you make of it. Like, you could do the general stuff like get your bearings and then go back out to New Vegas and get revenge on Benny. Or you can be completely evil and just kill every person that you meet. Yeah, no, the story is the one that you make for yourself, as ultimately you will also get to decide which of the major factions you will support to get the dam, or even possibly continue Benny's plan and do it all for yourself. But between there and the starting point, you definitely will be doing a whole lot of different like side quests and meeting a whole bunch of characters and just doing a whole bunch of stuff, such as exploring the Mojave and its many different abandoned buildings that you can scavenge through for like wearable items or just weapons. And then there's like the many different smaller towns you could explore and smaller factions to meet with, and you can do whatever you please with them, but you gotta be careful because included with the normal karma system, you know, where if you do something good, you get good karma, and if you do something bad, you get bad karma. This same applies to the factions and the towns, where if you do something good for them, they'll start liking you more, and if you do something bad against them, they'll hate you. And if you get far enough down on the hate category, they'll just start shooting at you on sight. But luckily, there is kind of a way around this. If you wear like the armor for a certain faction, like NCR, you'll be disguised as one of their soldiers. But you gotta be careful because if you're caught dressed up as one faction, the other factions against it will start trying to kill you. But I really gotta say, this is a really neat mechanic to have. What else is there? Well, there's the many different types of weapons to get, ranging from simple rifles to full-blown flamethrowers and mini-nuke launchers, alongside a nice selection of melee weapons like a power fist or a mini chainsaw, all of which that can be used normally or through the VAT system, which allows you to stop time, choose what enemy you want to attack and where you want to attack them. Like, I always go for headshots, and then if you hit them enough, it'll start crippling them and then doing more damage, and it's really good. And And another thing to go over is the many types of skills that you have, ranging from lock-picking doors and safes to how well you are with weapons to how well you are with your words, all of which being available to you, but you get to choose what you want to be better at by assigning skill points whenever you level up. So if you want to be someone who doesn't want to be like seen at all, you could put all your points into the sneaking skill, or if you want to make as much money as possible, put it all into the barter skill. And depending on what skills you actually put them into, you do get perks reflecting that, like ones that allow you to talk to children easier, or ones that make you stronger at night. But I definitely gotta say that one of my personal favorites is Bloody Mess, which makes you deal 5% overall more damage. And as a bonus, just like the perk's name says, it blows any enemy that you kill into a bunch of meat chunks. Alright, what else is there to go over? I guess I could quickly do the controls. And I only bring this up because I find it neat that they have a hotbar that you could, like, attach to your D-pad. So if you need to quickly heal yourself, you could press down, then use a stim pack. Or press another button and, like, pull out a weapon. And the other thing I wanted to bring up is that I just find it odd that in these Fallout games that for jumping, the button that you had to press was Y. Which, I mean, I get it. A is to interact with stuff, but still, you're going all the way up there to do something that's normally with the A button. Next, we have the graphics, which, I mean, overall they're good. Nothing too outstanding here. The humans actually look like humans, and for the most part I actually like the designs of the robots. But I guess if there were a negative, I guess it'd just be the fact that the landscape is kind of just dull. Nothing but sand, sand, and sand. But I mean, I get it. It's a desert. It's supposed to be like that. Alright, with that done, that leads us to the last two things I want to go over. The first of which is the music in this game, which there are two types of. The first of which is the music that can be played on your Pip-Boy through a radio, and with this being like a retro-futuristic 1950s style game, the music is of that era. Like a whole bunch of country western songs and Frank Sinatra, and they're like topped off with like radio DJs who even like comment on the events that are going on during the game, like what you do. Yeah, no, overall the radio stations in this game are really good. And then we have the second type of music, which is the ambient music, which plays when you're not listening to the radio, obviously. And well, it only really plays at certain intervals during the game, like when you're in combat or in certain locations. And well, for what it's worth, it's actually not half bad, and it's very atmospheric. Like, the music is trying to give life to this dead wasteland, but at the same time it's also reflecting its deadness. But anyway, with that done, that leads us to the last point I want to talk about, which is hardcore mode, which despite the name I would say is less hardcore and more like realistic mode. And although I don't have any footage of this particular mode, I do just want to bring it up because of how, like, kind of interesting it is. Because in this mode, you need to regularly, like, eat, drink, and sleep, or else you'll end up like dying from sleep deprivation, dehydration, or just starving to death. On top of that, you can't like sleep and get all your limbs reconstructed. You actually have to go to a doctor or use a doctor's bag. And I also believe your companions can end up like straight up dying instead of like fainting. And again, this is just a really neat challenge because it's like a whole bunch of new difficulty curves that you have to like deal with now. It adds a bit more to the experience. Although I will say that having looked at this again, it's kind of disappointing that they didn't go full blown and like have an extra part where you couldn't fast travel. Now that truly would have been hardcore. And well, that just about wraps up everything I wanted to talk about with this game. And granted, there's a whole lot more that could be talked about, but I'm just happy with scratching the surface. So yeah, it's easy to see why this is often considered the best game in the series. What in the goddamn?